Narcissism, the dark side of recovery. You may have walked away from the narcissist in your life thinking you were finally free, and at first, it felt that way. You stopped answering calls, you erased their messages, you built new boundaries, you started healing. But then something strange happened. They came back, not to apologize, not to change, but to manipulate once again. Because narcissists don't just lose people, they try to reclaim them, and they often do this under the guise of recovery, suddenly acting like they've changed, claiming to be working on themselves, and pretending to care about your well-being. But make no mistake, this isn't real recovery. It's another phase of control. In this video, we'll explore the dark side of a narcissist's so-called recovery, how they use personal growth as a weapon, how they disguise manipulation as transformation, and how they lure people back in when they think the coast is clear. We'll reveal why narcissists can never truly heal, and how their version of self-improvement is just another tool in their arsenal of emotional warfare. If you've ever been caught off guard by a narcissist who suddenly claimed to be doing better, only to pull you back into chaos, you're not alone, and you're about to understand exactly what they're doing behind the mask of change. So if you're ready to uncover the hidden truth about narcissistic recovery and protect yourself from falling into their trap again, keep watching, because knowledge is power, and once you see through their act, you'll never let them fool you again. Let's begin. If you're here, it means you've either lived through the pain of being manipulated by a narcissist, or you're trying to understand what happens after they claim to be healing. Either way, you're not alone. Millions of people struggle with the aftermath of narcissistic abuse, and many of them don't realize that the abuse doesn't always end when the person leaves. Before we dive into the heart of this topic, let's take a moment to connect. If you found this content helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing this video with others who might benefit from it. Awareness is the first step toward healing, and by spreading the word, you're helping others break free from cycles of emotional manipulation and destruction. Now let's start with the most important truth. Narcissists don't recover, they recycle. Psychologists describe narcissistic behavior as cyclical rather than linear. Narcissists don't grow, they mimic growth. They don't change, they repackage their old patterns in new language. And they certainly don't heal. They return to the same manipulations dressed up as insight. When a narcissist says they've changed, they usually mean they've learned new ways to manipulate without being obvious about it. They've discovered buzzwords like trauma, boundaries, and self-awareness, and now they use them to pull people back in. This is not recovery. This is deception. This is control wearing a new face. Second, they use therapy or spiritual practices as tools, not for healing but for grooming. One of the most dangerous things a narcissist can do is appear emotionally intelligent. Suddenly they talk about therapy sessions, meditation routines, or even spiritual awakenings. They quote books, they reference counselors, they post affirmations online, but none of it is genuine. Instead of using these tools to reflect, they use them to refine their tactics, to sound more authentic, to seem more relatable, to attract victims who are searching for healthy relationships and who believe someone is truly changing. But therapists warn that narcissists rarely seek therapy for accountability. They seek it for strategy, for better lies, for more effective hoovering techniques. Third, they idealize you again, but only to bring you back. After discarding you, many narcissists go through a psychological cycle where they briefly idealize you again, remembering only the good parts, longing for the rush of admiration and attention you once gave them. But it's not love. It's not regret. It's not even nostalgia. It's desperation. They need fuel. They need validation. They need someone to prove they haven't lost their power. And so they come crawling back with stories of self-improvement, false apologies, and promises of change, all carefully timed to catch you when you're still healing, still vulnerable, still hoping they might finally become the person you once believed they could be. Fourth, they pretend to respect your boundaries while secretly testing them constantly. One of the clearest signs that a narcissist isn't recovering is how they treat your boundaries. Real recovery involves learning to honor limits. Narcissistic recovery involves finding ways to bypass them. They send subtle messages. They show up unexpectedly. They ask mutual friends about you. They monitor your social media obsessively, and each time, they test your resolve. Not because they want to reconnect respectfully, but because they want to know how much control they can regain. Fifth, they rewrite history, not to heal, but to justify their behavior. Have you ever noticed how narcissists rarely admit fault? Even years later, they won't say, "I was wrong." Instead, they go over every interaction with you in their minds, twisting events so that they come out looking justified, misunderstood, or even victimized. This mental replay isn't about reflection. It's about maintaining their self-image. Every time they think about you, they reinforce the narrative that paints them in the best possible light. You weren't hurt. You were too sensitive. You didn't walk away. You abandoned them. You weren't strong. You were cold and unfeeling. By rewriting the past, they protect their ego, and as long as they can convince themselves that they were right and you were wrong, they can sleep at night. Sixth, they fake vulnerability to gain sympathy and trust. Real recovery involves showing weakness, admitting mistakes, taking responsibility. Narcissists fake all of it. They share stories of past trauma. They confess fears they don't actually feel. They cry on cue. They write emotional posts about learning to be better. But none of it is sincere. Therapists explain that this is part of the hoovering process. By appearing vulnerable, they disarm your defenses. By seeming broken, they invite your empathy. And by playing the victim, they shift the blame, making you question whether you were the one who pushed too hard, left too fast, or failed to support their journey. Seventh, they use your healing against you to make you feel guilty. As you rebuild your life, as you grow stronger, as you move forward without them, the narcissist begins to panic, because your healing proves something they cannot accept: that you didn't need them, that you were stronger all along, that their presence wasn't necessary for your survival. So instead of celebrating your progress, they twist it. They make you feel guilty for walking away. They suggest you broke them, that you abandoned them, that you destroyed any chance they had at becoming a better person. And they do it all with a smile, with tears, with carefully chosen words that sound loving but are anything but. Eighth, they smear your name, even while claiming to be growing. Despite all their talk about healing, many narcissists continue to damage your reputation. They tell others you were unstable, that you were the one who caused the problems, that you were the reason everything went wrong. This is not just spite, it's strategy. A way to preserve their image while rewriting the story in their favor. Psychologists note that this behavior is common among those who lack true insight. Narcissists don't grow from failure, they deflect it. And they do so by painting you as the source of their downfall. Ninth, they suddenly surround themselves with empathetic people, because they know they can drain them next. Once a narcissist realizes that you've moved on, they search for new sources of emotional fuel. But now, they're smarter, more strategic. They look for people who practice self-care, who speak openly about healing, who believe in second chances, and they target them. Because empaths and recovering individuals are the easiest to manipulate. They're already trained to be kind, to forgive, to give second chances, and that makes them perfect prey. 10th, they mirror your growth, to confuse you and pull you back in. Narcissists steal identities. They mimic emotions, and when they see you thriving, they adopt the same language, same behaviors, same values. Suddenly, they talk about boundaries. Suddenly, they claim to value peace. Suddenly, they say all the right things at the right time. But it's not real. It's a performance, a calculated attempt to win you back. They mirror your growth, not to join you, but to trap you again. 11th, they devalue your progress because your success threatens them. Nothing hurts a narcissist more than seeing you happy without them. Your healing terrifies them. Your independence shakes them. Your ability to move forward without looking back is the ultimate insult. So they do what they always do when threatened. They devalue. They downplay your achievements. They question your decisions. They suggest you've gone too far. They imply you're not the same anymore. Because in their eyes, your growth means their loss. Your freedom means their failure. Your peace means their defeat. 12th, they create the illusion of change, just enough to hook you again. Change is not something narcissists pursue. It's something they perform, and the moment they sense an opportunity to regain control, they stage a comeback. They post inspirational quotes. They share lessons they never really learned. They speak about healing like they've experienced it, but it's not real. It's rehearsed. It's a comeback tour wrapped in spirituality. And if you fall for it, you'll find yourself right back where you started, under their influence. 13th, they return with guilt trips disguised as honesty. Some narcissists reach out claiming to be honest. They say they miss you, that they've changed, that they finally see what they did wrong. But their honesty has a price. Their apology has a purpose. Their remorse is performative. They aren't seeking closure. They're seeking access. They want to remind you of your past pain, to reopen wounds, to make you feel responsible for their suffering. And once they've stirred up enough emotion, they try to pull you back in, telling you they need you to keep improving. 14th, they use your empathy against you by pretending to suffer. Empaths are drawn to suffering. They feel compelled to help, to guide, to rescue. And narcissists know this. That's why they stage emotional breakdowns. That's why they send desperate messages. That's why they pretend to be in crisis. They don't do it for healing. They do it for energy, for attention, for control. Because they know that if they play the victim well enough, you might just fall for it again. 15th, they monitor your life from afar, searching for weaknesses to exploit. Despite everything they may say, despite the silence, the smear campaigns, the fake indifference, they think about you constantly. Not because they miss you, not because they regret hurting you, but because your absence created a void they can't fill. They check your social media obsessively. They ask mutual friends about you. They interpret your posts, your photos, your silence, and every time they see you smiling, happy, thriving without them, they feel something deeper than anger, humiliation. Because your success without them proves something they absolutely cannot accept. You never needed them. 16th, they rewrite your role in their healing to make you feel responsible. In their mind, they tell themselves that you were the catalyst for their change, that you were the one who made them see the error of their ways, that they wouldn't have improved if it weren't for you. But here's the danger. They also tell you this. They drop hints. They send cryptic messages. They mention how much you taught them. And suddenly, you feel like you played a part in their transformation. But psychologists warn that this is classic manipulation. They don't want you to feel proud. They want you to feel obligated. They don't want you to celebrate your strength. They want you to believe you owe them something. 17th, they envy your freedom, and they try to sabotage it. Narcissists don't just hate losing control. They hate knowing you're living freely without them. They fear your independence. They resent your happiness. They despise your detachment. Because your peace represents their failure. Your healing confirms their flaws. Your moving on proves they were never truly powerful. And so, they do what they always do when they feel threatened. They try to disrupt your peace. They stir up old conflicts. They provoke reactions. They make sure you remember their name. 18th, they use your compassion to guilt trip you into returning. Compassion is one of the strongest weapons narcissists steal from others. They know that kind-hearted people give second chances, that forgiving souls listen to explanations, that empathetic hearts open doors even when they shouldn't. So they play the victim. They claim to be suffering. They say they've tried everyone else, but only you truly understood them. And suddenly, they've turned your compassion into a bridge, a way to pull you back into their world. 19, they claim to be working on themselves, but only when you're within reach. Narcissists don't work on themselves consistently. Their growth is situational. It appears only when they think you're watching. When they believe there's a chance to get you back, they suddenly become deep thinkers, spiritual seekers, and emotional warriors. But the moment they realize you're not coming back, the moment they see that you're truly free, they stop talking about growth. They stop posting about healing. They return to their old ways, convinced they were never wrong, because their recovery was never real. It was always a performance. 20th, they try to make you feel like the bad guy for walking away. Despite everything they did to you, despite the gaslighting, the manipulation, the emotional games, they still manage to turn the tables. They make you feel like the villain. They make you question your decision to leave. They make you wonder if you were too harsh, too cold, too unforgiving. And they do it with such skill that you almost believe them. But remember this, you were never cruel. You were never unjust. You were simply human, protecting your own spirit. And now, you must learn to protect it again. 21st, they pretend to respect your space, while secretly planning their next move. Silence doesn't scare them forever. Eventually, they realize that pushing too hard will backfire, so they retreat. They give you distance. They vanish from your life again. But it's not permanent. It's tactical. They wait. They watch. They prepare. And the moment they feel you're softened by time, by distance, by the hope that maybe, just maybe, they've changed, they strike again. Because for a narcissist, disappearing doesn't mean giving up. It means waiting for the perfect moment to return. 22nd, they use your past kindness against you to make you feel responsible. Narcissists store every act of generosity, every soft word, every moment of forgiveness. And when they decide to return, they use those memories as weapons. They remind you of the times you stayed. They highlight the moments you forgave. They replay conversations where you showed concern. And suddenly, you feel like the one who abandoned them, like the one who gave up too soon, like the one who could have saved them if only you had given them more time. But therapists warn that this is manipulation dressed as connection. They aren't reaching out to grow. They're reaching out to guilt trip. 23rd, they fake humility to lure you back into their orbit. One of the most convincing lies a narcissist tells is that they've become humble. They claim to have learned their lesson, that they now understand how flawed they were, that they finally see the damage they caused. But this humility is performative. It's temporary. It's designed to make you feel safe enough to let them back in. And once you do, once you believe their act, they revert to form. They begin testing your patience, challenging your boundaries, and before you know it, you're right back in the same cycle. 24th, they use your silence as a sign of weakness, not strength. When you walk away and refuse to engage, narcissists don't see it as wisdom. They see it as proof that you still carry their words, that you still feel their presence, that you're still affected by their energy. So they return with confidence. They return with boldness. They return believing they can easily pull you back in. Because to a narcissist, silence isn't strength. It's hesitation. It's fear. It's invitation. And they believe that if they knock loud enough, you'll eventually open the door. 25th, they try to make you feel like you're missing out on their new life. Narcissists thrive on making people feel excluded. And when they see you moving forward without them, they panic. So they craft a new identity. They post pictures of happy moments. They talk about new lovers like they matter more than you ever did. And they do it all to make you feel like you missed something, to make you wonder if you left too soon, to make you question whether you made the right choice. But here's the truth. You didn't miss out. You escaped. And now, you're building something real, something they could never offer. 26th, they compare themselves to you, trying to regain superiority. Narcissists define themselves by comparison. And when they see you thriving, happy, and living a life they can no longer touch, it stirs something dangerous inside them. Jealousy, resentment, hatred. Because you represent everything they failed to destroy, everything they tried to control, everything they feared would happen if you ever walked away. And now it's happening. You are moving on. You are healing. You are rebuilding. And worst of all for them, you are doing it without them. 27th, they rewrite your relationship to make themselves look like the victim. Once you walk away, narcissists begin rewriting the story. You weren't the one who suffered, you were the one who abandoned them. You didn't set boundaries, you shut them out. You didn't heal, you ran away. And over time, they build a version of your relationship that paints them as the wounded party, as the one who was truly hurt, as the one who deserves sympathy. They spread these stories to mutual friends. They post indirect references online. They whisper doubts to anyone who will listen, because for them, being seen as the victim gives them power, and being seen as the innocent one lets them avoid consequences. 28. They idealize you again, briefly, before devaluing you once more. There's a strange cycle that many narcissists go through after losing someone important. First, they discard you. Then, they idealize you again, remembering only the good parts, longing for the rush of excitement you once gave them. But then comes the crash, the realization that you won't come running when they call, that your absence is permanent. And so, they devalue you all over again, telling themselves you weren't that special after all, that you had flaws, that they're better off without you. This emotional yo-yo is exhausting for them and for anyone close enough to witness it, but it plays out in their minds long after you've disappeared from their lives. 29th, they start monitoring your life from a distance, even if you've cut contact completely. Despite everything they may say, despite the silence, the smear campaigns, the fake indifference they think about you constantly, not because they miss you, not because they regret hurting you, but because your absence created a void they can't fill. They check your social media. They ask mutual friends about you. They interpret your silence as weakness. And every time they see you smiling, happy, thriving without them, they feel something they absolutely cannot accept. Defeat. 30th, they become obsessed with your healing, because it exposes their emptiness. The more you grow, the more they shrink. The more you heal, the more they feel trapped. The more you move forward, the more they spiral. Because your recovery proves what they've always feared, that they were never truly in control, that their presence wasn't irreplaceable, that your departure wasn't a mistake, it was inevitable. And now, they can't stop thinking about it. 31st, they lash out at others because they can't hurt you anymore. Once they realize you're unreachable, they redirect their frustration elsewhere. They attack new partners, they criticize family members, they accuse friends of betrayal, because they need someone to feel their pain. They need someone to punish. They need someone to remind them that they still have power. And since they can't hurt you directly, they hurt whoever is available. 32nd, they act out publicly, trying to force your attention back on them. Some narcissists turn to drama. Others seek online fame. Some provoke arguments. Others post provocative content. All of it is designed for one thing: to make you notice them again. Because for a narcissist, being forgotten is worse than being hated. Being irrelevant is worse than being exposed. And now, they are realizing that you've erased them from your mind, and that terrifies them. 33rd, they search for ways to ruin your peace, even from a distance. Narcissists don't forgive. They don't forget. And when they realize you've moved on, they don't simply walk away. They look for ways to disrupt your peace. They send anonymous messages. They try to sabotage your relationships. They spread rumors. They stir up old conflicts. Not because they want revenge, but because they want to prove that they still have power over you. 34th, they project their failures onto you, blaming you for everything that goes wrong. One of the most common defense mechanisms used by narcissists is projection, blaming others for their own shortcomings. And when they feel like their life is collapsing, they double down on this tactic. Suddenly, everything went downhill the day you left. Their new partner doesn't compare to you because you were special. Their friends turned against them because you poisoned the relationship. Of course, none of it is true, but in their minds, you are the reason everything fell apart. 35th, they begin to feel what you felt for years, being watched, judged, and feared. Narcissists manipulate, control, and dominate others. But now, they are the ones being watched, judged, avoided. People start distancing themselves. Mutual friends become hesitant. New partners hesitate to commit. And for the first time in a long time, the narcissist understands what it feels like to be treated like a threat. And it terrifies them. 36th, they begin to experience what they made you feel for years, emotional suffocation. Narcissists live in a prison of their own making. A prison built from lies, control, and emotional manipulation. And now the walls are closing in. They can't form real connections. They can't trust anyone. They can't open up. They can't admit weakness. And now, they are surrounded by people who don't truly know them. People who see through them. People who walk away. And in that moment, they understand what you felt for years. The suffocating weight of emotional isolation. 37th, they begin to understand that their power was always borrowed, and that terrifies them. Narcissists build their lives around dominance, around the belief that they are superior, that they are admired, that they are unstoppable. But now, as everything slips through their fingers, they begin to understand something they've denied for years. Their power was never real. Their control was always temporary. Their influence was always borrowed. And now, it's being taken back. 38th, they begin to question their own choices, and that leads to desperation. For years they believed they were untouchable, smarter, stronger, more important than everyone else. But now, they are beginning to question that belief. Did I push you away? Did I lose someone valuable? Did I really win? These questions aren't signs of change. They're signs of inner conflict. And instead of facing the truth, they bury it under layers of justification, blame, and denial. 39th, they begin to understand that their life was built on sand, and now it's washing away. Narcissists build their lives on shaky foundations, relationships based on manipulation, careers built on deception, reputations formed through charisma rather than integrity. And now, those foundations are crumbling. They are losing jobs. They are losing lovers. They are losing friends. They are losing control. And with each loss they feel something they've avoided for years. Helplessness. 40th. They begin to feel what you felt for years, being haunted by the past. Narcissists don't reflect. They rewrite. They don't heal. They bury. They don't apologize. They blame. But now, the past is returning with a vengeance. Old wounds resurface. Old betrayals catch up. Old victims speak up. Old trauma finds new ways to haunt them. And they can no longer escape the truth. Because the past never forgets, and neither does karma. So if you've recognized any of these truths in your own journey, know this: you are not weak. You are not broken. You are simply recovering from something far more complex than most people understand. You were never chosen because you were vulnerable. You were chosen because you had something real, something valuable, something they needed. Whether it was your strength, your empathy, your resilience, or your love, you brought something into their world that they could never create for themselves. And now, you have the chance to reclaim that strength and use it for yourself, for your healing, for your growth, and for the life you deserve to live. A life free from manipulation. A life free from control. A life where your worth is not questioned, your emotions are not twisted, and your strength is not diminished. Thank you for watching this video. If you found this message meaningful or helpful, please consider taking just a few seconds to like, subscribe, and share this content with others who may be going through something similar. Awareness is the first step toward healing. Understanding the dynamics between you and the narcissist in your life helps you see the full picture, not just the pain, but the transformation that follows. Remember, you are not alone. You are not weak. You are not damaged. You are simply human, recovering from something far more complex than most people understand. Keep moving forward, trust your instincts, and never forget that your strength is real, and it belongs to you now, fully and completely. Stay strong, stay aware, and above all, remember this: you are not alone. There is an entire community of people who understand what you've been through, who have walked this path before you, and who are rooting for your healing and growth. Keep rising, keep protecting your energy, and never let a narcissist convince you that you were the one who failed. Because you didn't fail. You survived. And now you are healing. And that makes you stronger than they will ever be.